great to be joined on Locked On College Basketball today by the Locked On ACC host, Miss Candace Cooper, one of the greatest swimmers you will ever get to know in your entire life. She is a baller. And Candace, here's the big bombshell we got on Monday is that the ACC Big Ten Challenge, which has been in action for over 2 decades, is going away thanks to all the money and TV contracts and everything else. Andy Katz broke that news on Monday morning that this will be the last year of the ACC Big Ten Challenge, also the SEC Big 12, because starting next year, we will get ACC and SEC going at it. What are your thoughts on this whole big change?
You know, ACC, SEC, say that 3 times fast. It certainly is going to be fun for all of us who have to report this bad boy. But I think it just speaks to where we are now from a college athletics standpoint, and that, you know, the almighty dollar is starting to rear its lovely head. And as much as we want to act like TV deals and all the things don't matter, it truly does. And it's unfortunate that we can't see some of this rich tradition carry on. But at the same time, maybe it'll be better for us. Get something fresh eyes. SEC has certainly come up from a basketball standpoint, and there will be some, you know, classic matchups, whether it's Duke and Kentucky, Carolina or Kentucky, you know, some other LSUs coming up and all the things. So maybe we'll have an opportunity just to make some new rivalries or, you know, birth some of that. Alabama, North Carolina, who knew that could have been, you know, a future rivalry, and it's up 4 overtimes later, you know. So I think it's a great opportunity for, you know, good basketball and really getting some guys to have more eyes from across that national standpoint, because we all know SEC, you know, carries well and they bring that viewership.
Absolutely. And I mean, to your point, it's like the way the Big Ten has kind of filled out across the conference, the ACC, ever since it brought in all those Big East schools, just hasn't been the same. And so maybe it's actually a little more competitive. As we look back, folks will remember the ACC swept the first decade of this challenge, literally the first 10. But it's been the Big Ten dominating this thing since, including winning the last 3 in a row. And spoiler alert, they're going to take 4 in a row the way things are going to go. That's just the reality of it. And so do you see a world in which this might actually be a better conference matchup?
You know, I think that ultimately the ACC right now as a whole, as a unit, we're struggling from a basketball, football, whatever sport besides soccer, maybe in field hockey, as a unit, we're struggling. So I think that just giving them an opportunity to maybe have some like emotionally better or more elevated gameplay, especially early on in the season when we're trying to talk about longevity and good losses, bad losses, and all that fun stuff, when we talk about tournament time and who we're going to be able to add on the back end. So I'm hoping that, you know, this SEC, you know, opportunity is going to be good for our conference. And I think it will. I think that it'll just elevate, you know, games early on, punch people in the mouth early, get that regroup, kind of find that identity come December, and really roll into conference play, which is always, you know, a good time here in the ACC.
Absolutely. And per Andy Katz's tweet, this event is going to happen at the same time that the ACC Big Ten Challenge usually happens the week after Thanksgiving. So no difference calendar-wise there. Now, Candace, let's shift attention a little bit because this thing ain't blown up yet. We do have one more year of the ACC Big Ten. And so we have 2 games on last night. We're recording this before either of those games end. That's Minnesota at Virginia Tech, Pitt at Northwestern. So we don't know the results of those games. But as we start to look at this thing, I'm not finding many places where the ACC is going to get wins. I mean, when we look at the KenPom numbers of it, listen to this, Candace. The Big Ten has 6 top 25 KenPom teams, 11 top 50 KenPom teams out of their 14 teams. The ACC, conversely, only has 3 top 25 KenPom teams and 6 top 50 teams. So the Big Ten has as many top 25 KenPom teams as the ACC has top 50 KenPom teams. Can the ACC find enough victories in this thing to win?
I don't think it'll happen this season, but, you know, I do think it'll be a good showing. I think for what people know for November and this early December basketball to be, you know, teams are still figuring it out. They're still figuring out rotations. They're still figuring out who they are as a program. So I think there's ample time to catch somebody slipping, have an off night, you know, catch somebody hot shooting and all that fun stuff. But there are certainly, you know, there's a great divide. Even when you look at the ACC, the top is the top, and then it, you know, tears down pretty heavily, especially especially with the men's side. So it's going to be ugly for the ones that aren't exactly doing well right now. That's for
exactly.
sure.
And we often laugh at, so the Big Ten has 14 teams, ACC 15. So there's always a team that has to sit out. This year it's NC State. And a lot of people I know in the North Carolina area laughing about that because it's like, oh, the Wolfpack. Listen, the Wolfpack is currently at KenPom the 6th best team in the ACC. The ACC wishes it had the Wolfpack playing in this event. So looking at it, here are Tuesday's matchups. We already talked about Monday. Tuesday, Penn State at Clemson, Maryland at Louisville. I mean, nothing there. Syracuse at Illinois, Wake Forest at Wisconsin, Georgia Tech at Iowa, Virginia at Michigan. That projects to easily be the most, at least, viewed game of Tuesday night. As you hear any of those you see going the ACC's way?
I really think that Virginia is a team right now that they had the returners. They have the storylines that North Carolina is presenting, but they're actually delivering when it comes to bringing guys back. Hate to say it, love my school, but here we are.
Yeah.
I think Virginia is certainly a team that's getting back in the right position to be successful. When I look at Wake Forest and Wisconsin, I think that's sort of a toss-up. Wisconsin certainly has a staple program, but I think what Steve Forbes is doing at Wake Forest is certainly something to be commendable. He has gone in the transfer portal. I don't think Alanis Williams is walking through that door, but you definitely have some guys that are certainly willing to put in the fight. And Georgia Tech always has those hit or miss programs. Iowa is Iowa. They never, seem to be terrible. I don't think Illinois and Syracuse, poor Syracuse. They're struggling with teams that you have to Google where they're located, right? and then for Clemson and Penn State, you're like, Clemson, sometimes you show me something good. But all in all, I think it's going to be, edge of Big Ten when it's all said and done for these Tuesday matchups.
Okay, let's turn our attention then to Wednesday. And this is where we typically get some of the more dynamic matchups. Just kind of going through it. Ohio State at Duke. Interesting there. Purdue at Florida State. Man, preseason, I was super excited about this matchup. Now Purdue's just like, when do we tip again? All right, we got, you know what I'm saying? Rutgers down at Miami. UNC at Indiana, Michigan State at Notre Dame, and Boston College at Nebraska. Let's take a little run around Wednesday night. Candace, what are you looking at for tomorrow's slate?
I would love North Carolina and Indiana to be a matchup of all matchups, and maybe it will be, right? North Carolina coming off 2 losses, not expecting to get punched in the mouth quite like they were at the Phil Knight Invitational, so maybe they can bounce back in a big way. Hopefully Caleb Love doesn't shoot every shot in the gym, but who knows? There's lessons to be learned at invites, right? I think Ohio State and Duke is going to be the best matchup of the evening.
So I'm with you.
The way the Blue Devils have been playing, the way they have, gained confidence, they have lost some tough matchups. They've gotten humbled a little bit, but that's exactly what you need in November so you can excel in March. So I'm not really worried about them. I think they also have a really good coach who is figuring out how to utilize all of his skill players at once. And so I'm excited for that one. And then I will say Michigan State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame is always a team. Elajewski, I'm like, is this man 45? When does he graduate? How many threes do you need to keep shooting in order to have the, NCAA record? My God. Him
and Kihei Clark are rolling in wheelchairs together.
I'm just saying,
when Virginia plays
when does the COVID eligibility thing end? Because my guy has been here for quite a time. So I remember him giving us the business in North Carolina. So I'm just like, okay. So I think Coach Bray, he's really, really an excellent coach, one of the best in the business. So I think you never can count them out. And then with Boston College and Nebraska, honestly, Boston College is a fun team. They are figuring out who they are. Coach Grant is in his 2nd year. And of course, he has a couple of new guys and they're just flowing, right? They're not the team that everyone expects, but you can't count them out. They give me, Steve Forbes vibes in the sense of we don't expect anything. So might as well just have fun and maybe we get a couple good, upsets out of it.
Absolutely. And who knows? For all we said, like you said, teams are figuring out rotations. Purdue's going to go down to Tallahassee and Leonard Hamilton's going to suddenly figure something out. And that'll be that's not going to happen. Unfortunate to see there. And so, as you said, Candace, I don't see a path to 8 victories for the ACC. It really seems like Big Ten should come away with their 4th straight ACC Big Ten challenge. Give me one maybe just storyline that you're watching for that maybe people haven't really thought of or paid much attention to with the ACC yet.
I think the ACC is just, as much as we try and write them off, they always find a way to bring a lot of teams in the tournament when it's all said and done. I mean, last season we were saying it was only going to be one or two that made NCAA tournament for the men's side, and it ended up being guys were going almost all the way for like at least 4 programs. So say all that to say, don't get overreact. It's college basketball. These guys are going through things. They're figuring out who they are. Give it time. Don't start judgment calls until, I would say, early February. Then we can start, saying, all right, they are who we are. They are who we thought they could be, or not. They aren't. So I'd say just have a little more patience. But if you are frustrated, there is always a great side of women's basketball in the ACC, and they're rolling. So I'm just saying, if you want to support some people, there's a lot of love to go around in college basketball.
Love to see it. And yes, man, such great women's basketball going on in the ACC. Lots of highly ranked teams. Go check out all the great action there. Candace Cooper, great stuff as always. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.